Hi YouTube, this is Mediocre Coder, and I'm here again for another video. This is part 3. We're gonna be using the camera, making the camera script so that the camera can be positioned so that the board that we've created in the last video can fit in the view, regardless of what size the board is. So last video we created the board class, and the board class has a list of dots to spawn so it knows what to put on the board, and a width and height field to know how long it's going to be and how tall it's going to be for the board. And then when we play it, it will create our board, and right now it's kind of like cut off, and that's because it starts spawning at 0, and then it goes up, and you can see here it's going up, but it's starting in the center, so it gets cut off. So we have to create a camera script that's gonna it's not gonna move the board, but it's gonna reposition the camera so that the camera doesn't isn't at 0, but it's gonna be at the center of the board based on the width and height. And then it's going to also resize so that we can see it fully. So let's get started. I'm going to go into my scripts folder that we created, and then go to create. I want to make it a folder. So I'm going to organize my scripts as well. So I'm going to call this camera. I'm going to make a new folder. Let's make a new folder called board. Put the board in there. Make a new folder called dots and put the dot in there. And then I'm going to go into my camera folder and then make a new script. So go to scripting, and I'll just say empty C# script and call it camera camera controller. Let's call it that. Okay, so I have my camera controller open, and what I'm going to do is first we're going to make a get a reference to the board class. So I'm going to say private board. And we need this so that we can get the width and height from the board, and that we'll use that for our calculations when we try and resize the camera. So now I'm going to say private void start, or let's do this in awake. So in awake, what we're going to do is get the reference to the board. We're going to assign the reference to the board. So we're going to say find first object of type. It's not populating, but it's called find first object by type. I think I have to, I'm going to quit and go to here and open C# project so it gets the right downloads, or I guess compiles the right way, the right assembly scripts. So I'm in my camera controller class, and I'm going to make a reference to the board again and assign it in awake. So let's see, find object. I don't know why this is not working. It's not showing so this has to extend from mono behavior. That's my bad. So it's going to be board equals find first object by type, and I'm using Unity 6, so this is the new method for getting an object in the hierarchy. So then we pass in board in the angle brackets. And so now we have the board, and then we can make a method called update method, and that's going to make it so that we can reposition our camera on every frame. So also I'm gonna have to pass in the board width, board dot, oh, and the width is not accessible. So what I'll do is I'll make this public, and I'll get rid of this. And this is not good practice. We want to keep our state encapsulated so that it's not accessible to anyone, and that involves making, public getters and private setters, or just making it private altogether. But for now, I'll just say public width and public height, and we'll change that later. But for now, we'll say board.width and board.height here. And then I'm gonna do command period and let it generate the method for me. So now what I'll do, we need to get the center of the board. So we'll say vector to temp, and we will get the center of the board by doing the width divided by 2 and the height divided by 2. And then what we do, we need to say camera dot main. Let's actually make a new thing, a new field that's gonna have reference to the camera. So I'm gonna say cam equals get component camera. Then I can say cam dot let's say position transform dot position equals temp. That's going to position our camera to the center of the board, and then we need to basically do an if statement that's going to check if the width is greater than the height. So if board dot width, or we have the width here, so let's call this X and Y actually. And we also have to say -1 so that we're excluding zeros, because the actual width and height is a number that's from 1 to infinity. So we don't want to include zeros in the zero in the calculations. So I'm gonna do if board.width is greater than board.height, then what we'll do is say cam.orthographic size, which the orthographic size is just half of the visible height in the camera. And so now we need to set this to be X divided by 2, because we want half of the width, and then we divide that by the aspect. We need to divide that by the aspect ratio, and the aspect ratio is just the ratio of the width and height. And so we need to make that field, and the field that was going to be set to 0.625. This is going to be a float. And so I set my aspect ratio to 0.625 to be 16 or 10. That's going to be 10 by 16. And then we can also add some padding. padding, I'll let us set that in the inspector. So I'm going to add serialized field, and then we can add the padding here. Now what we'll do is say else. I'm going to copy this, and we're going to, instead of dividing the x by 2, it's going to be the y by 2, since we're trying to fit the height. So in this first if statement, we're trying to get the width to fit in the entire screen. Since the width is greater than the height, we really want to focus on getting the whole width in there. If the height is greater than the width, then we want to focus on getting the whole height in the view, or fit in the screen. So that's why we're changing the calculations based on that. So we want to just get the y, or the height, divide that by 2, add padding, and we don't need to divide by aspect ratio, because the aspect ratio is really just to get the make it so that it's proportional, so that we if we're dealing with the width, then we need to get the height to kind of it makes it so that the height and the width are changed, but they remain the same ratio. We keep the same ratio, but we don't need to worry about the aspect ratio when we're dealing with the height, because that's going to automatically adjust itself. So now we can, let's see, I think this is it. That's all we need. I'm going to go into Unity and let everything compile. And then I'm going to click on the camera and then add the camera controller script we made. Let's add padding to be 1. And now if I play, I mean, we don't get anything. I didn't expect. Oh, okay. So the position of the camera has to be a vector 3. And it needs to have -1 as the z index, and that's just going to make it so we can see everything that's in the camera. It's still a little zoomed in. Oh, so I forgot that we added an offset to the board, to the objects that are on the board. So we have to account for that. That's going to need to include the offset. So we're going to divide, or we're going to multiply by the board's offset, which is a static field, and we need to add vector 3 here because it can't do multiplication with that syntax. So you have to add vector 3 here, and that's just basically getting the center, and we're multiplying by the offset because that's what gives us spacing, and each object is being multiplied by that offset, so we're going to get some spacing in between them. But then of course we have to include that in our calculation here. So that's going to get our true center of the board. And now let's see what happens. Okay, so I needed to multiply the board offset by the width, and this will be a float. These both will be floats, and we multiply the board offset here too. Okay, so again, this is just getting the width, but because we have that offset, we have to multiply the width and height by our offset because that's our true width. So what I had before is still the same thing as this, but we are changing the x and y that we have referenced in the parameter list. Okay, so when I play, now we've got the board centered in view. You can see all the dots that are in there, and what I can do is if I add some padding, some more padding, so let's say 2, it zooms out a little bit. So you can change that to whatever you want, whatever feels good. And I like to keep it at like 2, maybe 3 is good. That way we get some nice space at the top. So I'm gonna end the video here, and what we'll do next, we'll try and work on getting the spawning of the dots to be a little more better, because right now it's only spawning blank dots, and I don't know if this is what was happening in the last video, but I'm gonna fix that in the next video and get a better and more enhanced and improved system for spawning dots. So stay tuned for that, and this is the Mediocre Coder, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.